Hello, and welcome to the December edition of Absolute Security's Patch Tuesday updates. And of course, I'm joined by Rob Brown, Absolute Security's very own Patch Tuesday guru. Rob is going to run us through the vulnerabilities highlighted this month and give you the best advice on how to patch for them. And I will be sharing some tips for staying super safe over the holidays after that. So keep watching to the end. Well, Rob, I can't believe it's the last Patch Tuesday of the year already. It's been quite a year. What with Windows 11, and we also had the biggest ever update in October with 175 fixes and 5 critical. If you missed that, if you missed the October edition, I'd strongly advise you to go back and have a listen. Anyway, over to you, Rob. What's going on in December?
Thanks, Justine, and a very warm welcome to everyone joining us on the December Patch Tuesday. We have a relatively small Patch Tuesday, considering only 2 months ago we had the very largest one. We have another month where we don't have any .NET framework updates, but we do have a lot of other things we need to talk about today, starting with New Year's resolutions. If your New Year's resolution was to upgrade your environment to the latest supported operating system and feature update, probably now is the time to start that project. Of course, we said goodbye to Windows 10 a couple of months ago. That does have an ESU life cycle of 3 additional years, where you can purchase a special license for Windows 10. They do have to be purchased concurrently, so you have to purchase year 1 before you can purchase year 2 and year 3. That will give you extra support, air cover as it were, until you can get your estate over to Windows 11. There is still no, I suspected, but there's still no concrete release schedule for Windows 12. So expect to stay on Windows 11 for the long term. Windows Server 2012, that will officially go end of life next year on the 10th of October. That is the 3rd year of the ESU life cycle. Do consider moving off 2012. It's quite an old operating system. I'm sure there's a lot better server operating systems available right now. Windows 11, we need to get you to 24H2 or 25H2 preferably. I said last month that we wanted to give 25H2 a good couple of months to validate any internal testing, to make sure we hadn't observed any issues, any patching failures, any customer feedback. And so far, it's been really good. We've had no negative feedback from any customers and from our internal testing. So in January, 25H2 is good to go. If you're upgrading from any Windows 11 feature update that has already expired, I would recommend going to 25H2. There is one challenge that you may observe in Windows 11, and that's the enablement package that is available for Windows 11. The enablement package allows you to upgrade from a previous feature update until 24H2. From 24H2 to 25H2, you have to effectively reinstall Windows with the feature update ISO. This is because this operating system architecture is completely different to the previous one. So they don't offer an easier upgrade, but when you get to the latest feature update, an enablement package will be available, and that will help you get to 26H2, 27H2 going forward. So there is a small sort of technical challenge you might have to get you to 25H2, but once you're there, there will be an enablement package, which effectively is like a patch that will just flip you to the next feature update, and the ongoing should take anywhere between 15 minutes and 30 minutes to install the latest operating system feature update. Now that everything there doesn't include, sorry, we're not including any of the dates here with the long-term servicing. So if you do have the LTSB or LTSC licenses for Windows 11, you actually have support until 2030, so you don't have anything to worry about. No, we had a relatively small one. Actually, I think this was like a third of what we had from the very largest feature update. We just had 57, two critical, 53 are important. We had some lows as well. 6 of the 57 were more likely to be weaponized. One of them is weaponized. One of them is public aware. Luckily, the weaponized and public aware isn't the same. So we have one unique weaponized, one unique public aware. We also have 3 jump points, and we're going to talk about that a bit later. One of them in particular is worrisome. So I would urge customers to use jump points as a selection criteria for their patching strategy. If we take a look at the leaderboard order is exactly the same as last month, with elevation of privilege being the leader of the leaderboard this month. 27 fixes. That's where a threat actor gains access to an employee's account, bypasses the proper authorization channels of the operating system, and successfully grants themselves access that they're not supposed to have. Followed by remote code execution, we have 18 fixes. That's a class of cyber attack in which attackers remotely execute commands to place malware or other malicious code on your computer or network. If you're familiar with the webinar series, remote code execution vulnerabilities are the worst kind of vulnerabilities. For that fact, I urge customers to use remote code execution as an identification to include in your patching strategy, even if the vulnerability itself doesn't happen to be critical. So anything that is sort of important, medium, low, if it is a remote code execution fix, please consider putting that into the priority of your patching strategy. Information disclosure, that occurs when a system unintentionally reveals sensitive information to unauthorized users. This happens sometimes when you read memory from the CPU or memory from the memory modules, and that's often where you get sort of password, sort of clear text passwords that you're passing through. Super serious to close those gaps. Denial of service, that just causes the system to be unavailable, causes a lot of outages, especially now around this time of year when your business might be at its busiest. You certainly don't want any servers to go down or any services to go down that could cause people that are buying things to have any kind of delay. That can cause exceptional issues at this time of year. So we have 3 of those. 3 spoofing, that's where an attacker pretending to be someone or something else to gain unauthorized access, deceiving a system or trick users. We have 3 of those. No security feature bypasses this month. We have one unique vulnerability called not a vulnerability. Not sure if you've ever seen that before. I certainly haven't, but it was released. It's not a vulnerability, but it's in the security Patch Tuesday release. Interesting. So maybe perhaps that might get reassigned. Do keep a lookout for anything that is released, especially around this time of year that we call out of band update. Now, if you are a customer of Absolute and you're using our platform, this is how we would recommend a risk profile for selecting the patches to deploy that cover the vulnerabilities that we believe are cause you the most risk. And if you're not a Absolute customer, we're going to provide a download sheet. You can put the CVEs into your tool set and use the same methodology of selecting the ones that have the highest exposure. Now, we create the risk profile based on several factors because we feel that multiple factors allows us to create a better intelligence, and that can help fine tune our selection criteria. Unfortunately, we live in a world where we can't just deploy everything all at once. A lot of our customers are across continents, multiple languages. Networks aren't as fast as aren't able to handle the load like they were pre-COVID. So we can be clever and organize our patches into sort of smaller groups where we might have our priority group going out first, followed by our second priority and third priority groups in a way that doesn't overload the network and also not disrupt the end users. So that risk profile starts with the vendor severity. Of course, we use the vendor severity because they are the guardians of severity of their own technology. The vendor severity typically doesn't always follow this, but typically is critical, high, or important, medium, low, and NA. Of course, critical is the most serious. NA is not very serious. The CVSS score, on the other hand, is an independent calculation. It is a number out of 10 that is calculated based on many, many factors, including things like how easy the vulnerability is to expose, what kind of permissions the user needs in order to become susceptible to that type of attack, whether you need to have access to the network or physical access to the device itself. Now, that CVSS score gives us a unique perspective, an independent perspective on the vulnerability itself. And if we combine both the vendor severity and the CVSS score together, then we have a better data point intelligence. So we can say anything that is critical or high vendor severity, or CVSS score more than 7, which is the equivalent of high and critical, should be included. Please note, sometimes the vendor, Google, is guilty, I'm afraid, of some updates that they released to their browser with an NA severity, although it carries a CVSS score of 9.8. We'd like to put the two together. It does keep us honest. It gives us a better chance of getting those really important updates out to our devices to keep them safe. The second is the state of the vulnerability. Now, weaponized, it means that the vendor has identified that exploits are occurring. Now, that might occur worldwide. It might also be relatively localized, but they have identified that this particular vulnerability has been used in an active attack. When something is weaponized, it doesn't mean that it's going to hit your environment, of course, but it is an indicator that it's being used. And so you might want to, if you have the ability to, create perhaps automations around the state of a vulnerability, that when something becomes weaponized, even how small, it should automatically be deployed after 24 hours. So we allow 24 hours to pass for that vulnerability to be tested, and then we deploy that to all devices in our organization. Public aware means that someone has published the blueprint to exploit that vulnerability. Public aware does not mean that it is under active attack at this point. And many, many vulnerabilities that become public aware never actually do become weaponized. These are often found by bug bounty programs and white hat hackers and these shows that you see where they're trying to hack for some kind of reward. But I certainly wouldn't want to be an IT manager that knew that they had a public aware vulnerability in their organization that perhaps wasn't severe enough on a severity basis and wasn't at that point weaponized, only for it to become weaponized. So public aware, if you have the ability to do so, create some automation, get the public aware vulnerabilities into your mailbox every single day. Find out what public aware vulnerabilities exist in your organization so that you can decide whether those are the vulnerabilities you believe fall in your risk profile, and therefore deploy them to your organization. Of course, if those public aware vulnerabilities fall automatically into your patching strategy because they're critical or high, don't have to worry about it. But sometimes public aware vulnerabilities have a lower severity than what usually you might care about. And even a vulnerability that is medium severity can be used in an active exploit. So use public aware. Countermeasures, they help us balance this risk. Countermeasures mean that the vendor has issued us guidance. This guidance says if you modify this registry key, you can effectively work around the problem. You can change this security, this local policy, the registry, like I mentioned, maybe GPO. If you can apply this countermeasure, then you don't have to as urgently deploy the patch. Now, these patches can be really large. In fact, more recently, we've seen them close to 2 gigabytes in size. If you are not able to quickly deploy 2 gigabytes of patch to your organization, and there is a countermeasure available, please consider deploying that countermeasure. They can be very quick registry keys, and that will give you some daylight in order to plan the rollout of the patches, so we don't disturb the users too much. But we also have mitigations that perhaps there is a security tool in your organization, like an antivirus or a next generation firewall, that could perhaps be used to protect your device until you're able to deploy the patch. Those countermeasures do exist. They are available from the vendor's website. Check them out. If the vendor suggests that any countermeasure you've deployed should be reversed after the patch is installed, please follow their guidance. It's super important you do that. Often registry keys are used or local policies are used to help you not be susceptible to this kind of attack. And then you forget about that registry key until some point in the future, a hack in the future is going to use that registry key that exists that you built, which is part of the Microsoft ecosystem now. So it doesn't recognize it as a risk at that point because it placed it there. So please do pay attention to any countermeasures and get those reversed as soon as you can, as soon as the patches are deployed. And lastly, the most important of all 6 is your exposure. Often I'm meeting with our professional services customers and they say, hey, we've just heard about the CVE that's going around that's causing significant outages across the globe. And they're worried about a vulnerability that doesn't actually impact them. If we take all the factors and we balance those against your exposure, we can see which vulnerabilities have the highest exposure that we care about. Use the exposure to your advantage here and deploy the vulnerability with the highest risk, with the highest exposure first, even if that is a vulnerability perhaps that isn't critical. It could be high or important with a high to medium CVSS score. If the exposure is high and that vulnerability is weaponized, do deploy that one first, because that's probably the one that's going to be used in an active attack. Now, let's go take a look at our website. So on our website, absolute.com, you'll find all of our articles that we've produced. They're available from our resources section. If you want to get in contact with us about any of our technology, including how we can defend your organization and stop downtime, do use the request demo button in the corner there. Under the resources section, you'll find our library and the Absolute blog. The Absolute blog is where we post our Patch Tuesday articles, but also all of our resilience recommendations for our customers to enjoy. Go ahead and click on this link and you'll get straight to the Microsoft Patch Tuesday write-up. Now, this does appear on Patch Tuesday, so but an hour or so after Patch Tuesday is officially released, this is when we release this blog, and we hope you enjoy that. Do give us some feedback. We'd love to get to hear the great feedback we get from our readers. I'm going to give you 5 recommendations for this month. However, I'm going to give you, because it's this time of year, I'm going to give you a couple extras because they are pretty important. Now, this particular Patch Tuesday has a unique edge to this, where we have, perhaps for the very first time, a vulnerability in the AI tools, which is our first one that we're going to talk about, which is CVE 2025-64671. 64671. This is a GitHub Copilot for JetBrains. Beautiful name. It's a remote code execution vulnerability. Now, an attacker could execute arbitrary code via malicious Copilot suggestions in the JetBrains IDE. Has a CVSS score of 8.4, which is shares the highest CVSS score of the whole release. Just severity important. It has an attack vector of network, which means any network, including the internet. No privileges required. User interaction is required. Low attack complexity. This is publicly disclosed, so this is one of the public aware vulnerabilities. Hasn't yet been weaponized, but I know that a lot of organizations have development teams, and in particular, I want to protect them. They have access to your source code. Please make that your #1 priority. Followed by CVE 2025-62221. This is a Windows Cloud Files Mini Filter Driver elevation of privilege vulnerability. Now, this is heap buffer flow based. So we talked about heap buffer flows before in the driver that can allow an unauthorized attacker to elevate privileges locally. CVSS score 7.8. This does have a local attack vector, which means they need access to your network in order to exploit it. But it requires low privileges, no user interaction, and low attack complexity. This impacts every single Windows 11 device and the server operating systems where OneDrive is installed, which is on most systems automatically. That, I'm afraid, is weaponized. Exploitation has been detected, so do make that your priority 1 as well. My third recommendation, which is 2, CVE 2025-62554 and 62557. These are both Microsoft Office remote code execution vulnerabilities. It does require the user to open a malicious Office document. However, the preview pane is an attack vector. Super serious. Preview pane makes my hair on the arm stand up because I use it. That means you don't actually need to double click. If you just simply hover over the icon and it pops up on the right hand side in your screen, that can deliver the payload. Now, these are 2 critical rated vulnerabilities from this release. High likelihood of weaponization and phishing campaigns. You should deploy these patches urgently, but you could also turn off the preview pane. If that becomes your environmental policy to turn off the preview pane, that is a mitigation for this vulnerability. My fourth recommendation, which is also 2, is CVE 2025-62549 and 64678. These are Windows routing and remote access remote code execution vulnerabilities. Now, interesting, Windows routing and remote access, RAS. This does exist on a lot of systems, especially if you've got legacy VPN tools in place. It has a CVSS score of 8.8 and 8.0, which is the highest from this release. It can be exploited across any network, including the internet, with low to none privileges, no user interaction, and low attack complexity. This is very serious. Now, a lot of servers, potentially internet-facing servers may have this service turned on by default. It is part of the standard Windows template. You may not be using it, but simply the service running may be enough. So a perhaps recommendation would be if your server does not require this, turn off the service, patch the patch. And lastly, CVE 2025-62550. This is an Azure monitoring agent remote code execution vulnerability. This is CVSS score of 8.8. Severity important, which is why it's important that you put the 2 together. Attack vector is adjacent, so you do need to be on a network, either local or across the WAN. Low privileges required, no user interaction, low attack complexity. And if you can exploit this vulnerability, you can gain system access on the monitored hosts. So it's extremely important that if you have Azure monitoring agents installed on your devices, please do go and make sure that that gets updated. My jump points for lateral movement. The jump point is what we call a scope change. That means that if you can exploit the vulnerability, you are able to cross into another technology within the operating system. This is incredibly important to close down. So jump points are my recommended extra patching strategy selection. We have two DirectX vulnerabilities to talk about. Doesn't look too important. A CVSS of 6.5, they may not get caught in your patching strategy. However, and doesn't matter how exploitation less likely they are, it is possible to exploit and move sideways. If you can move sideways within your operating system, you can leave breadcrumbs, which means a hacker could leave access to your organization through another access point. Even if you go ahead and close this vulnerability at some point in the future, they could have left another access point into your organization. Please go ahead and pay particular attention to jump points. And lastly, the one that makes my hair stand up is Hyper-V. CVE 2025-62567. Hyper-V can exist on Windows 10, Windows 11 systems, as well as servers. Exploiting the Hyper-V vulnerability could allow you to go from the host to the guest to the host. So if you can exploit the server, you have access to all the guests on the host, and vice versa too. So if you do have servers, doesn't matter how unlikely this is to be exploited, do please go in and patch those. Anything that becomes weaponized may suddenly increase the CVSS score, and you're kicking yourself that you never did it when you could. My takeaways for today, my 3 recommendations starts with prioritizing the AI system, prioritizing those drivers. Please make sure that they get patched as soon as possible. Start your pilot testing today. Get an extended pilot done by Friday. Over the weekend and Monday, make sure that your organization is good. Testing has been come back successful. From Tuesday going forward, start deploying before the end of the year. Very, very important. Second, my second important recommendation is build resilience into your patching strategy in the event that this patch that we're deploying causes a user outage. How do you recover at scale from it? Don't let that you not deploy the patch in fear of an outage. It's super important that these patches get deployed. But if something happens after you've rolled out the patch, do you have technology? Do you have a platform? Do you have a partnership with an organization that can help you bring your organization back to a known working state very quickly and at scale? Please build that into your New Year's resolution. And lastly, for the CISOs, make sure that you continue to monitor your compliance throughout the month. Don't just wait for the week before you're about to give the board your patching compliance. Make sure that you have tools that can keep you updated throughout the calendar month with compliance reports, identifying devices that aren't patching, so that you don't find out at the last minute that you have a whole bunch of devices with missing updates that you simply can't react quick enough to resolve. As I said right at the beginning, if you're not an Absolute customer, we are going to give you this little download chart. The download chart is the order in which I provided my recommendations today. Go ahead and take the CVE from here, pop it into your toolset. In your action plan, go ahead and put your percentage of exposure here and work out which one you're going to deploy first, whether you're going to deploy based on vendor alone, CVSS score alone, or our risk score, which actually calculates it for you automatically in priority order. But your environment is unique, so deploy uniquely to the risks in your own organization. Don't let a particular vendor tell you what is more important than another update. Thank you so much for joining me today. The last one of the year. We really enjoy sort of presenting these, and I look forward to seeing what Microsoft is going to give us next year. But until January, patch smart and happy patching.
Thank you so much, Rob. It's always good to hear your sage advice. That Hyper-V vulnerability will track with organizations that use a mix of Mac and Windows devices, I'm sure. And talking of sage advice, before we go, don't forget you can catch up on our Resilient CISO streaming series over on LinkedIn, and you can also subscribe to our monthly newsletter. This month, Absolute Security CISO, what a job title, Harold Rivas, will be joined by guest CISO, Mike Wilkes from Akido. You can register for live sessions or watch on demand using this QR code. If you're in need of specific advice about resilience or patching, then please contact us via the website or use the QR code here. And now, the holidays are peak season for attackers because businesses slow down while workloads don't. So here's a quick, fast IT pro checklist before we go into the holidays. Number one, expect a surge in phishing. Fake shipping notes, end of year urgency scams skyrocket. Train users to pause or take 5 before they click. Lockdown access. Number two, enforce MFA everywhere and review dormant or overprivileged accounts before people go on PTO. And also, this is a key season for people, movers and shakers, people leaving, people joining. So make sure your access is absolutely spit spot. Use a modern ZTNA solution for the highest grade access protection. Number three, patch what matters. Of course, Rob will be nodding on that one. Holiday exploits often target known unpatched vulnerabilities, prioritize internet-facing systems and VPN gateways if you're still relying on them. Number four, watch remote work risk. Staff will be on home Wi-Fi and hotel networks. The rule is simple. ZTNA if you have it, VPN if you don't and you can't rely on anything else. And of course, RDP, your remote desktop protocol, stays off, no exceptions. 5, monitor for anomalies. Reduce staffing means slower detection. Turn on alerting for odd logins, unusual file movement, and privilege escalation. And then finally, keep your wits about you. We're seeing a spike in AI-driven vishing and smishing scams that mimic real voices and texts. A common one pretends to be a family member who's lost their phone and needs urgent cash. And there's a simple fix for this. Establish a family safe word. It's the fastest way to confirm you're talking to a real person and not a hacker. Bottom line, attackers love distracted teams. Tighten controls so you're not doing incident response when you could be enjoying the festive season with your family. Once again, thanks for watching this broadcast. Thank you, Rob. And don't forget to like and subscribe.